A Supreme Court ruling could reshape the entire U.S. economy. How the Supreme Court's tariff ruling will impact the U.S. economy. From your grocery bill to global trade relations, this decision will touch every corner of American life. Today, we'll break down what the case is about and how the tariffs were imposed. Possible Supreme Court outcomes: uphold, strike down, partial ruling, economic impacts, consumer prices, inflation, business investment, government deficit, and trade relations. Political and legal consequences for future administrations. What to watch for next as the ruling approaches. Trump's tariffs explained. In 2018, the Trump administration imposed sweeping tariffs on billions of dollars worth of imports. Steel, aluminum, and Chinese goods faced tariffs ranging from 10 to 25%. The stated goal was protecting American jobs and reducing the trade deficit. These tariffs were implemented using emergency powers under Section 232 and Section 301 of trade law. Critics argued this bypassed Congress and violated constitutional separation of powers. Supporters claimed it was necessary to counter unfair foreign trade practices. The immediate effects were mixed. Some industries saw protection, while consumers faced higher prices. Retaliatory tariffs from other countries hurt American exporters, particularly farmers. The trade war escalated, affecting global supply chains and economic stability. The Supreme Court case centers on whether the executive branch overstepped its constitutional authority. The Constitution gives Congress, not the President, the power to regulate interstate and foreign commerce. Challengers argue that tariff authority was improperly delegated to the executive branch. The government defends the tariffs as necessary for national security and economic protection. They cite decades of precedent allowing presidential trade actions during emergencies. Constitutional scholars are divided on the scope of executive trade powers. The court could uphold the tariffs, validating broad executive trade authority. They could strike them down, requiring congressional approval for future tariffs, or issue a partial ruling setting new limits on presidential trade powers. Economic impacts: winners and losers. Consumers have been the biggest losers, facing higher prices on everyday goods. Washing machines, cars, and electronics all became more expensive due to tariffs. Middle-class families felt the squeeze as their purchasing power declined. Some domestic industries benefited. Steel and aluminum producers saw increased demand and higher prices. Jobs were created in protected industries, though at a cost to the broader economy. Shareholders in these companies saw significant returns on their investments. Manufacturers using imported materials faced higher costs and reduced competitiveness. Retailers struggled with supply chain disruptions and margin compression. Exporters, especially farmers, lost market share due to retaliatory tariffs. Inflation accelerated, forcing the Federal Reserve to consider monetary policy responses. Business investment declined as companies faced uncertainty about future trade policy. The government deficit grew as tariff revenues failed to offset economic disruption. Political and global consequences. The ruling will set precedent for future administrations' trade policies. Congress may need to reassert its constitutional role in regulating commerce. Trade policy could become a major issue in upcoming elections. Globally, trading partners are watching closely for signals about American trade reliability. Supply chains may need restructuring based on the court's decision. Future trade negotiations will be shaped by the precedent this ruling establishes. Conclusion. What's next? This Supreme Court ruling will have far-reaching implications for businesses, consumers, and the global economy. Businesses must prepare for potential policy shifts and supply chain adjustments. Consumers should expect continued price volatility as markets adjust to new realities. The global economy will need to adapt to whatever framework the court establishes. Future generations will inherit the economic and legal precedents set by this decision. As we await the ruling, one thing is certain: the balance between executive power and economic stability hangs in the balance. Stay informed, stay prepared, and remember that in democracy, every decision shapes our economic future.